Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. I apologize. Man, that was an awful time to get something caught in your throat. Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that everything is going well for you, and you are ready for today's program. So today on the show, we have a full hour of computer and technology news. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot going on. I think that between the recent announcements from the Worldwide Developers Conference, which is Apple's big yearly event, this one being held completely online. So if you'd like to check it out, you can definitely do that. But, we're going to distill down the best parts for you and try to find just what Apple had announced. And we have a couple of different sources, lots of different talk about what's going on. And overall, it's going to be a good day for news. There's more than enough to talk about, and I'm looking forward to it. So before we get started, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find anything that we do, including reviews, articles, podcasts, show notes, past shows, future shows, archives, video archives, links to our social media, anything like that, computeramerica.com. Very simple. Check it out. And on top of that, just check it out. Why don't you? And I think we should just get on with the news because there's so much going on, and I want to make sure I can hit all of this. It's going to be a big hour. So here we go. Computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that our first story that we're going to cover is going to be about, all of this is breaking news. All this happened just about an hour ago before we're doing this right now. And I think first one that we can kind of encapsulate and wrap up and then get to the bigger series of stories is going to be the story about Myxer. Now, if you aren't familiar with Myxer, that might have been the problem. Myxer is Microsoft's direct competitor to Twitch, which, by the way, Computer America, twitch.tv/Computer America, if you'd like to see our live video feed. But anyways, Myxer was Microsoft's answer. They tied it in closely with the Microsoft platform. And, they spent a lot of money on a couple of big names from Twitch to bring them over. And since then, Twitch has even changed some of their policies so that their competitor wouldn't kind of poach other people on their platform with these massive contracts. And, they were having, Microsoft put in a good effort into building a streaming community, because really that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to purchase communities from Twitch and pretty much transplant them onto Myxer, and hoping that Myxer through the Xbox platform was going to thrive. And the problem with that is that, Microsoft and Xbox, they haven't had the best go of it for the past couple of years. Their market share is only like 25%. in the console space compared to PlayStation. PlayStation allows you to stream as well, but they allow you to stream to Facebook and or Twitch as well as Myxer. They were kind of platform agnostic, whereas Microsoft tried to see kind of a beginning space, and they wanted to try to cultivate it and, again, build up that community. And they threw a lot of money at it. They tried their best. We have the statement here from Myxer, exactly what is they told everyone. This happened just about an hour ago, and man, it's a bit of a surprise, Clearly, they haven't been able to do what they set out to do, but and they even say in their own thing that they didn't do it in the time scale that they wanted it. So now here we are. So let's talk about this. Microsoft is shutting down Myxer and partnering with Facebook Gaming. So a couple things there. Shutting down July 22nd. So exactly 1 month from today, Myxer will no longer work. If you try to go to Myxer.com in 1 month, it will redirect you to Facebook.gg or whatever the heck the Facebook Gaming section is. Microsoft and Facebook partnered. Microsoft is getting out of the space altogether, and Facebook is continuing. And, I don't think that Facebook has the best alternative, because right now there were 4 players in the space that were notable. And those 4 were, of course, Twitch, Myxer, YouTube Gaming, and Facebook Gaming. And I would not say that that is not in order of popularity or anything like that. That's just what they are. And then, of course, Stadia, to an extent, from Google, although, of course, they own YouTube Gaming. So of the 4 major players that you have, and of course there were a couple smaller streaming websites, but none of them even come close to the viewership and the amount of people watching and the amount of hours watched that these large companies, think about it, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Facebook. They're about as big of a company as you can be. No one else can really touch these 4. And one of them is about to pull out. So now you're looking at 3 major platforms. So, with that being said, Microsoft, they chose to partner with Facebook Gaming, and they said that they're hoping to expand other things like their xCloud platform, but to focus on the shutdown of Myxer a little bit. Let's take it directly from a blog post from Myxer. This just came out about an hour ago, saying that from the beginning, Myxer has been creating the most engaging and interactive live streaming experience. We want to set out to help our streamers build great communities based on deep engagement with their audience. You have all been amazing through this journey, and they're proud of what they've accomplished together. Essentially just saying, hey, we're happy, but it's time. Ultimately, the success of partners and streamers on Myx is dependent on our ability to scale the platform as quickly and broadly as possible, which I agree. The point of live streaming is not to cater to a small amount of people. That's not what made a lot of other industries out there, from movies to television to radio, the recorded music industry. It's not about, trying to keep your audience as niche and secretive as possible. No, obviously, it's about getting the audience. And if you don't have the eyeballs, if you don't have the ears, then you shouldn't be in the space. And that's what they decided. So to continue on with Microsoft words, it became clear that the time needed to grow our own live streaming community to scale was out of measure with the vision and experiences that Microsoft and Xbox want to deliver for gamers. So we've decided to close the operations side of Myxer and help the community transition to a new platform. And by that, I think that means that any rewards or things like that that you are currently earning, any kind of subscriptions that you currently have, there's a big transition scheme set in place to transition a lot of the rewards that people had already built up with Microsoft, and you get a comparable amount of those through Facebook. And of course, there's going to be a lot of transactions. There's going to be hundreds of thousands of transactions happening between Facebook and Microsoft by the end of this. But if you are one of the few active members of Myxer, a lot of your rewards, a lot of what you've done should transition somewhat to Facebook. I'm not going to say it's a one-to-one, not say it's a perfect transition. I'm just saying that they're trying their best to make sure that when they offload Myxer, they're offloading you onto Facebook and not onto Twitch or YouTube. So with that being said, to continue on here with the press release, which again, we'll have a link to it in the show notes, but they're saying the Facebook gaming team and creators will help expand that vision with Myxer. For Myxer streamers, this opens up the opportunity to reach the vast audiences of one of the fastest growing streaming platforms, which is true. We'll talk about that in a minute. And every month, more than 700 million people play a game, watch a game video, or interact in a gaming group on Facebook. For Facebook's gaming creators, this brings the ability to partner closely with the Xbox ecosystem, including future opportunities around Xbox Game Pass, Project xCloud, and more. So it seems like Facebook and Microsoft are getting real chummy together, although obviously I think that Xbox has a lot to do to make up with this. And personally, just kind of as someone who plays a few video games, I don't think that Facebook is the most revered name among gaming circles, and especially for watching or digesting gaming content. Facebook is not really the place that you think to go, but they're easily one of the most reachable audiences out there. So with that being said, Facebook Gaming is making it easy for everyone, and then they, show off here how you can transition from Myxer onto Facebook. And, they're doing some things like they will honor all existing partner agreements as close as possible. They'll do, like I said, they'll transition any kind of subscriptions that you have. You'll be able to transition pretty easily. You can continue to grow and monetize your streams and anything like that. Facebook will then pay out instead of Microsoft. Now, here's the thing. Viewers with outstanding Ember balances, that can be exchanged for gift cards. So if you have some of that, there you go. The Myxer service will continue to run through July 22nd, 2020. Like I said, 1 month. And after that time, Myxer.com will redirect to fb.gg. So Facebook's gaming website. They said that Myxer broadcasts on Xbox One will be temporarily disabled, and the Myxer apps will notify or redirect viewers to continue watching their favorite streams at Facebook Gaming. So with that being said, they kind of ended it there with thank you to everyone and so on and so forth. One of the big fallouts from all of this was that a number of the big contracts that we kind of spoke about before, and because people are very attracted to large numbers. Some of the biggest names include King Gathalion, Shroud, and of course Ninja. All three of those are the aliases of three of the largest community members, and there have been a number of other communities that, a number of other streamers that were onboarded by Myxer. All of them will have their contracts, I guess, kind of torn up. They get to keep the money that Microsoft promised to pay them, and in some of those, it was upwards of $20 million. So it's pretty incredible that you get locked in for a 3-year contract, and then, hey, $20 to $60 million later, you don't even have to honor the contract. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, they are free to go back to Twitch, or they are free to go to YouTube or to Facebook. So it's a pretty big day for what happened in streaming platforms. One of the 4 just fell, leaving 3, and of the 3, Twitch is still looking like the strongest. Now, when they said, one thing I want to take note of is that when it came to viewership hours and things like that, in terms of engagement and so on and so forth, let's see, I think that Twitch, again owned by Amazon, had about a 100% year-over-year increase in the amount of hours watched on the platform, whereas Facebook Gaming had about a 260% increase year-over-year. So Facebook is indeed one of the fastest growing websites for live streaming out there, but the question is, obviously Twitch had a massive step up head start. That's probably the correct phrase. By purchasing, man, what was the old one called? The before Twitch, you had something that perfectly escapes my mind right now. But yeah, they had to step up. The fact that they're still growing year over year by 100% is really incredible. And Facebook has a long way to go to catch up to them. And YouTube has plenty of hours watch on their regular system, but they're having a hard time getting people who are used to watching short form, kind of curated and, created videos. They're having a hard time getting them transitioned over to a live streaming format. So with all that being said, it's going to get a little bit different out there, and I have to give credit to Microsoft. They didn't try this halfway. They created a platform. It was better in a lot of regards. Technically speaking, 1080p, 60 FPS, higher bit rate. It was very easy to navigate. They did a lot of things right, but one thing that you just can't do is you can build the platform and you can, try to stoke the fires by bringing over some of the bigger names from Twitch, but still people have to log in. People have to redirect their browsers from Twitch or YouTube and go to Myxer instead, and that was just a step too far. And they had to pull the plug. I can also appreciate, Microsoft saying, hey, if it's not working, it's not working. Let's just, kind of cut our losses and move on with this. Instead of letting it limp along for as long as it could have. They put in a good try, and they should, no one at Myxer, streamer, employee, Microsoft, corporate offices, I think everyone behind Myxer did a really good job. But what ended up happening, hey, the odds were against them. That's what happens whenever you try to create an alternative for something that is still, kind of growing, and you have one of these one or two huge actors. It's almost like trying to create, as Google saw. I would actually draw a lot of parallels to this between what happened with Myxer and what happened with Google Plus. You can be a huge name in the industry. You can do everything right. Everything can, you can be objectively better than your competitors, but still, at the end of the day, it's up to people. And if people don't want to follow through, then hey, it just doesn't work. So Myxer is going to be no more in about a month, and hey, hello, Facebook Gaming. They are going to completely absorb them if you missed that entire spiel. So there you go. I think that wraps up, pretty much that entire section of the show that I wanted to do, because that is, that's a pretty big day of news all by itself. That would normally be the biggest story of the day. But of course, that only matters to, people who enjoy watching video games online, and of course, people who have maybe stock in Microsoft or Facebook, so on and so forth. But check this one out. There's a much bigger series of stories, and I'm going to say that a series of stories, and this has to do with, of course, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. And trying to get together all the information that we can about this, not easy. There's a lot announced, and let's go ahead and start off the best we can. So iOS 14 will give iPhones the new home screen, dishing Intel chips, and more. There's a lot to talk about here. This article from CNBC does a pretty good job. We'll go point by point, and if we have a relevant article to it, we'll go ahead and and get to it. But check this one out. Apple announced a new software for its iPhones, iPads, Macs, Apple TV, Apple Watch, and more on Monday. If you didn't know, iOS 14 was announced. It will include updates such as the ability to set a default mail app or browsing app, and a redesigned home screen and new lightweight software called App Clips. So App Clips are going to be just kind of portions of an app. You don't actually have to use the entire app. Let's say if you have a payment thing that you like to use with with PayPal, instead of, kind of signing into PayPal, waiting for it to load, putting in your username, password, doing that. No, you can just have like a little clip of the app and you can use a portion of it. But we'll get to more on that later. So with that being said, Apple's WWDC conference is being held remotely this year due to COVID-19, and they've gathered about 6,000, in recent years, they've gathered more than 6,000 developers in San Jose, but of course now everyone is doing it from the safety and comfort of their home. So let's talk about this. iOS. Yeah. And by the way, they said that they addressed the current protests as well, because that's the other huge thing happening in the news today. Well, in the past couple of weeks, Apple committed $100 million to a program to fight racial injustice. So that's something that should also be acknowledged and and congratulated. So let's go ahead and start talking about this iOS 14. The latest version of the iPhone operating system includes a big change to the home screen, including the ability to set default email and browser apps for the first time, because normally it would just default you to the Safari and the Apple email one app that you would use, but now you get to change around. Hey, consumer choice is always good. Users can drag widgets onto their phone. I'm sure that if you have an iPhone lately, you've been noticing widgets are becoming more and more of a thing. And if you're looking at the video portion here, you can see an image of what widgets would look like. So imagine an iPhone, and instead of, what is that? About 6 times 4, 24. Instead of 24 little icons that would represent apps on an iPhone screen, instead of that, they have, let's say, one widget that would take the space of where maybe 8 of the little icons would normally be. And there you would have, let's say, the weather with an hourly view instead of, just all these little squares. You can also have like news feed, you can have podcasts and things like that going. You can have maps that take up the whole thing. You can have photos if you want, let's say Instagram to take up more space. Essentially just like little bits of information that would take up more space than that little square. That is probably one of the biggest changes to the iPhone look in a long time. So these widgets are then going to interact just like the everyday icons would. iOS 14 includes a new feature called the App Library that automatically organizes apps. Users can also delete entire pages of apps in one tap, or see similar apps like games in the Apple Arcade or other examples. iOS 14 adds several new features to the messaging app. There's the Memoji. Not the hugest fan of that. And also looks like they're redesigning the Messenger app to be more group friendly. So there you go. They also say, and some of those changes include iOS introduces a picture-in-picture feature to enable video on float on top of its apps while watching video. I think that the picture-in-picture would be something like if you're watching Netflix, but you want to be able to also have a video call going on in the background. You would have a little square with the video call, and you would have Netflix on the entire screen of your iOS, device. And I make note of the iOS device because this is probably going to be covered later on in the article. And this is we're going to talk about what a transition kit is, but spoiler alert, Apple said with the transition to the new ARM processor that they're switching from Intel to ARM, their own that they're making, the Mac OS, the desktop version of their operating system is going to look a lot more like the iOS. So they're getting everything in place so that, if you are on the desktop, you're not constricted by, typical mobile limitations, but you're still going to be able to do more on both because of this. They said that the update also includes a redesign of the Siri interface. Siri has 20 times more facts than a few years ago, Apple said. Siri needs a lot of work. I don't even know if Apple knows what to do with Siri at this point. Obviously with Google and Amazon making such great strides in getting the standalone devices into people's homes and getting them integrated into automated systems, Siri is just, I don't think there's really, like, it's probably not too late, but man, I don't have any faith in Apple to get Siri off the ground. But there you go. Guys from partners, including Zagat, will be included inside Apple Maps, and they add content about restaurants or attractions into the app. Apple will also add cycling maps in certain cities like New York and San Francisco. Let's see. If an app is using iPhone's camera or microphone, Apple has introduced a new notification to inform the user. My God, that one should have been in there forever, but hey, here we are. Incoming calls can also be displayed as a banner notification for the first time, Apple says, and developers can download the new, and actually that banner one, as someone who uses an iPhone, super inconvenient when you kind of open up your phone and you see, it just takes up your whole interface, and you either have to make that decision right there, right that second, to decline, hang up, accept, that kind of thing. So they said that developers can work with the iOS this week in a public beta that will be released in July. So developers and those in the developer program can get it this week. Everyone else has to wait about a month, and then you can play around with what it's going to look like. The article goes on, and by the way, this article is pretty long because it goes over everything from the Worldwide Developers Conference. Future Macs will use the Apple design chips, Apple says, and probably Cook says. Apple has been using Intel chips for the past 15 years, and Cook said it was a huge leap forward. Apple said it is designing its own chips specifically for the Mac to provide more performance while using less power, which is always, kind of the benefit you want any processor. Faster processor, less energy consumption. That's what you want. We went over this the other day. Intel losing Apple as a customer, it's not the end for Intel. I believe even with all the Macs that were sold that were still using the Intel processors, they accounted for about 5% of Intel's entire production purchases. So it's not the biggest hit. It is a big hit to Intel, but it's not the biggest deal. And for Apple, it could actually make a pretty big difference if it works. Now, I've heard some criticism about what it is that they're doing and how this is going to affect people. If you're a developer and you are using an application, you develop an application for for Mac, in the Mac operating system. Now, a lot of the program should play nicely. All you would have to do is transition from Intel's x86, 64, whatever it is, to ARM instead. And really what that would mean would be you put it back into your compiler and you compile it for a different set of instructions. Ideally, that's what's going to happen. Every single application that is not Mac native, or even is Mac native, they're all going to have to do this. Every piece of software written for a Mac is going to have to be recompiled, and in a lot of cases, and that's just best case scenario, is that they put it in there, recompile it, and it comes out working perfectly. The other side is that if it doesn't come out perfectly, every single application is going to have to be looked at, changed, tweaked. They can still be coded in whatever language that they were developed in, but if things don't work, there's going to have to be workaround fixes, and that could mean for a lot of people out there, you're going to have to take into consideration that a lot of software, because as Tim Cook said, for the past 15 years, it's been on the same architecture. Apps that you kind of take for granted that are available through or for the Apple devices, Apple's going to have to pay really close attention to make sure that they don't lose a massive amount of software that's just not going to be updated. That's just not going to work anymore when they make this transition for their devices. Now, again, to put this into perspective, none of this really affects the cell phone division. For iOS and iOS partners in general, that's okay. This only affects devices that are operating with Mac OS, and all of these are going to have to need entirely different software, and yeah, that transition is not going to be a smooth one. It's going to be very rocky. They said that Apple says developers can get their new apps running in a couple of days, as they say here, and there is a number of new software features that enable developers to easily port their apps. That's what Apple says. Whether or not that proves to be the case, I'm very skeptical. They said that Apple said that Microsoft and Adobe are already updating their software, including Photoshop and Excel, to run on their new Macs. And there's an example. Now, obviously, Microsoft, Adobe, I think Adobe just came out with an official Photoshop app for like their iOS devices and things like that. Very much the reason why we're seeing moves like that. But even to that extent, yes, they're massive programs, but the Microsoft Office suite, the Adobe suite of products, if this was really an easy port and it only took a couple of days, these apps would already be out and ready to go. This is going to take a lot. So everything developers need to build apps in the new chips is included in the Xcode. And you can see here, again, if you're watching the video portion, they are, if developers need to code for this, they're selling Mac Mini enclosures with system on chip, 16 gigs of memory, 512 gigs SSD, Mac OS, Big Sur development beta, and Xcode. Essentially, it's a Mac Mini that is running the new operating system completely, so that they can try this out, they can test it. It will support virtual machines, so on and so forth. It's they're trying to position these Mac Minis so that developers can test out their programs and get these things going as fast as possible. Because like I said, it's not going to be a clean transition, but Apple's going to try their best to make sure that it's as clean as it can be. So Apple did not announce any new consumer computers using its new chips, but will make a version of the Mac Mini with the Apple chip available for software developers, as we just said. I'm interested to see what the first generation of, let's say, Mac Pros, the iMac Pros, the iMacs, I'm interested to see what those specs are going to look like on the new chips and whether or not they're actually, kind of boot stable. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Apple CarPlay and digital car keys. That was something else announced. They're, making sure that Apple CarPlay continues to do well. Newer cars. I think this is the bigger part of that announcement. iOS 14 and iOS 13 with supported cars, you can use your phone as your car keys. That's different. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have their key fobs. Things have been going digital, and being able to control your car, start your car remotely and be able to do things like that with your phone is something you can do in a lot of cars. But now Apple is making it so that you can unlock and lock your car with your Apple device. And even beyond that, you're even able to kind of give the keys to someone else. You can share it through iMessage, and users can deactivate the keys remotely through the iCloud. So, I don't know how big the secondhand key market is, the key cutter kiosk and things like that. Although I know that you have to ship them out or you have to order out for for car key fobs, but still. This is pretty unique. Obviously, if there is still that group of people that are not comfortable with cars becoming more internet connected, this is the opposite of that. You'd be able to control, unlock, lock, share keys with anyone you'd like. So that's interesting. So right now that only applies to the BMW 2021 5 Series, and that will be released next month, and they'll soon be working with partners all over the country to bring that to a wider set of cars. App Store and clips. So let's see. Apple introduced a new lightweight form of its software called App Clips that can be launched through the web or a text message. They're less than 10 megabytes in size. So they said that they tap on an NFC tile or a QR code like image and pull up an app clip to participate with the business, and they can use it to use Apple Pay or things like that. They address privacy changes in the App Store. Apple introduced a new nutrition label, quote unquote, because obviously you do not eat Apple, for apps that summarize an app's privacy policy. I would probably, they call it kind of like a nutrition label. I would call that more of like a sanitation list. How clean is an app? And you can see everything that it asks, and they're hopefully trying to make that a little bit more friendly to read. Because right now, going through the permissions and going through what an app actually asks for is already pretty hard. Apple said that 200 million accounts have been created using Apple Sign-In with Apple feature it was introduced last fall that allows users to sign into web services using an Apple account. Many Apple-developed iPad apps, including Photos, Music, Notes, have gotten iPad user interface updates with sidebar and tools, and they have a nice little image here of what that looks like on an iPad. It looks pretty slick. I actually do like that. Obviously, this is a $1,200 iPad, so, what's not to like, but yeah, it looks pretty good. So let's see. The rest, obviously, they front-loaded this thing with the more important features. Let's see. What other iPad OS, if you're using iPad, that got an update. So there's that. AirPods. AirPods are going to transition. Let's say if you have a phone and a tablet, then they're going to seamlessly transition to whichever one you're using, as opposed to having to resync them to the different device. Apple Watch got a little bit of an update, including some more sleep monitoring and some more fitness tracking updates. And Apple HomeKit and Apple TV got some updates as well. Let's see. So macOS Big Sur, that's been announced, but obviously, if you haven't seen that, Big Sur should start to look more and more like an Apple iOS device. I wouldn't recommend it, obviously. It's, Well, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it personally, but it's one of those things that Windows tried it with Windows 8 and 8.1, and Apple, gosh darn it, if you need to... how do you say this? If you need to fall into the same trap that Microsoft did, the 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, then hey, by all means, step in the bear trap. But making a desktop PC work more like a mobile device just isn't what consumers are looking for. There you go. So I think that's just about everything, and obviously there are some more stories. Let's see if there's any. More here that I really wanted to kind of cover here. Let's go ahead and talk about real quick. So some of the other app stories that we had here. This one from Engadget. Apple makes it easier to see the personal info apps requests. They have a new privacy little tracker kind of deal. It will pop up in the corner, and if you kind of follow through with the app, you can see what it's asking for, including things like financial info, contacts, browser history, locations, purchases, identifiers, and data used to track you, contact info, identifiers, location. You can see with icons, instead of a massive, massive list of jargon, what it is that they're asking from you and whether or not you're comfortable with it. I'm happy that they're finally doing it. I don't know why it took them so long, but there you go. So with that being said, let's see. I think that's just about it for Apple. It was a lot, and for sorry about that. But when it comes to Apple and their WWDC, it's one of those things that transitions actually really nicely to kind of a webinar style format. I think it was a really good one. They announced a lot of really good announcements. Obviously, this was the WWDC, the developers conference, so this may not appeal to everyone, but some big changes coming to iOS, much, much, much anticipated. And I'm not the biggest fan of what's happening with the Mac OS, but hey, no one really asked me. It was not my decision, so we all have to live with it. There you go. So let's go ahead and continue on here. That's about everything from Apple. Let's go ahead and talk about... You know what? Something that's pretty easy to digest, and that's a Japanese supercomputer. And as much as I like that, yeah, let's go and do this one. No, actually not that one. There's a new winner, a new crowned winner when it comes to supercomputers. And Japan just took the prize. This was just released like 5 hours ago from Tokyo. The latest supercomputer developed by Japan state-backed Riken Research Institute is the world's fastest for computing speed, according to a twice-yearly ranking announced on Monday with the top 500 project, with the Japanese supercomputer taking top prizes. Now, again, this is the fastest working supercomputer, not the fastest supercomputer being built. There are faster ones currently in the process of being made, but this one is really incredible. It's been online since June 16th, and check this one out. It's the first time that a supercomputer has topped the rankings in the 4 categories according to Riken. And they said that the Japanese supercomputer, which was jointly developed with Fujitsu and institutes at the institute's facility in Kobe, forms a key foundation for powerful simulation used in scientific research and development of industrial and military technologies. Let's see. So let's see how this thing ranked. They said that it was picked as the world's number 1 in June after performing over 415 quadrillion computations per second, which is around 2.8 times faster than the Summit system developed by the U.S. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which secured the top spot in the last rankings in November 2019. So think about that. In last year, so this ranking comes out twice. I guess, this is the most recent one. So last year, in about 6 to 12 months, the fastest supercomputer to come online is now 2.8 times faster than the most recent one. And I know that we talk about, we've been talking about Moore's Law less and less, but still, Moore's Law, every 18 months, everything gets twice as fast, twice as efficient, everything just kind of doubles. Technology doubles. And it's going even faster than Moore's Law. This thing is incredible. And they said that another supercomputer developed by the United States at rank 3, while China held both 4 and 5, the 4th and 5th spot. They said that the Japanese supercomputer to rank the only Japanese supercomputer to rank in the top 10, and there you go. And they have one at 12, but hey, who's keeping count? Currently being operated on a trial basis for research on potential medicines to fight the coronavirus. They're expecting it to be fully operational in the business year starting in April 2021. The K supercomputer, which is the world's first supercomputer with over 10 quadrillion computations per second, ranked number 1 in 2011. So that gives you a kind of a sense at the level of advancement we're seeing. June 2011, you were looking at 10 quadrillion computations a second, and now here in 2020, you're looking at 415 quadrillion computations a second, a 41, really over a 41 times increase in processing speed. Really incredible. It became the K supercomputer became the subject of controversy in 2009 as then ruling Democratic Party of Japan, who is a member of the government panel seeking to cut spending on the national budget, questioned whether Japan needed to pursue the number 1 position amid economic crisis. So this thing has been in production for the past, I believe they're still talking about the Super K computer, which took about 3 years, and this one took about 3 years. But still, 415 quadrillion computations a second. This thing's going to be incredible. And again, if anyone out there is scratching their head wondering why does anyone even need a supercomputer, it is for, as I said before, medical research, and it's also for there's a lot of military applications. There's a lot of construction applications. There's weather prediction or weather modeling. Obviously, Japan has been hit by a number of natural disasters, and something like this would be very, very useful to make sure that they aren't caught by surprise once again. So there you go, or at least give them as much warning as possible. Congratulations to Japan. I honestly love hearing about supercomputers. They're one of the it's almost like, obviously we talk about cell phones and laptops and desktop computers all the time here on the show, but it's like if you own, you have your Honda Accord, you're happy, you have a car, but then you still like hearing about the Formula One race cars and just how powerful they can be. It's just the best, the top of the top, and it's really incredible to see what can happen when you have unlimited money to put into these things. So there you go. So with that being said, let's keep it high tech just for a little bit. If you haven't heard about CERN, where have you been? CERN, they run the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC, back in what year was it? Like 2012? Yeah, 2012. They found the Higgs boson particle, known as the God particle, and they proved a fundamental, for the first time ever, they were able to prove a fundamental law of the universe. And hey, it a lot of math fell into place, and it really answered a lot of questions. Turns out, hey, there's a lot of questions that only apparently giant burning piles of cash can solve. Enter the next phase of the CERN Large Hadron Collider. We have a new one called the Future Circular Collider. And there's even a nice little video for it here. We should be good here. We'll go ahead and mute that. And yeah, turn on closed captioning. We should be good there. So if you're watching the video portion, you can of course see it there. Check this out. CERN has approved plans to build a $23 billion super collider 100 kilometers. Man, science terms already. Just kidding. 62 miles. 62 miles long. That would make the current 27 kilometer, or let's see, 27 to miles is like, what was that, like 8? No. Oh, wait. I got this. Obviously 6.2 to every 10. So you're looking at like 15. Let's just say 15-ish miles. So currently you have like a 15-mile super collider. Now you're looking at a 60-mile super collider, 4 times the size. They said that the so-called Future Circular Collider, the FCC, would smash particles together with over 100 TeV, who knows, of energy to create many more of the elusive Higgs boson particles first detected by CERN in 2012. And this Higgs factory would be key to helping physicists learn more about dark matter and other mysteries of the standard model of physics. They said that, quote, such a machine would produce copious amounts of Higgs bosons at a very clean environment, would make dramatic progress in mapping the diverse interactions of the Higgs boson and the diverse interactions with other particles it would allow measurements of extremely high precision. They like that kind of stuff. They outlined it in a new strategy paper. CERN emphasized that its current priority is to complete a high luminosity upgrade of the current LHC with high field superconducting magnets that would create many times more collisions than the LHC can now, boosting the chances of seeing the Higgs boson and other rare particles. So they said that the aim is to start construction of the new tunnel by 2038. Think about that, 2038. They are in no hurdle. But they said that is the massive, that's massive hurdle. They're in no hurry, and the massive hurdle is money. The new project is so expensive that CERN will need to seek funding outside the EU member state nations. Instead, it might need a global organization that includes US, Japan, and even China. It could be a hard sell, especially as the new collider would have wouldn't have as clear of a goal as the LHC did. However, the particle physics and the standard model are at a place where the application of science is needed to validate theories. Saying, quote, "We do know that the only way to find answers is by experiment, and the only place to find them is where we haven't been able to look yet." So this is a constant struggle in academia and in research, that you're always looking for funding. Obviously, finding the Higgs boson, proving the fundamentals of the universe as we know it, and now searching out the building blocks of dark matter and how everything came to be. Very important questions from a scientific, from an educational standpoint. My God, those might actually be the most important questions that we have to ask as humans. But from a financial standpoint, it makes no sense. You can't monetize the Higgs boson particle. You can't sell dark matter. Sure, advancements and other lessons that can be learned from this might have an application in some weird way that might earn you some money. But again, the big point of this is to answer questions, and the big question is, how do you find $23 billion for something that won't even be completed until by the earliest in the 2040s, so 20 plus years down the road? It's a big ask. It's definitely a big ask. So there you go. All right, we have less than 10 minutes left here. Lots of different stories that we could talk about here. I'm really happy with this one. Obviously, there's an election cycle coming up. The 2020 presidential elections are probably going to be some of the most fraught with fake news and altered images and things that have like captions in them that just aren't true, so on and so forth. The big problem we have here is that there's no easy way to see if an image is real or not. Enter Google. Google fact-checking now extends beyond the standard searches and YouTube. The internet pioneer has introduced fact-checking labels for image search results. Tap a bogus picture for detailed view, and you'll see a blurb from the verified source indicating what's false and offering a link to the full article debunking the image. If a photo is a known fake, you'll find out before you start sharing it with your friends in disbelief. Which, honestly, it happens so often when it comes to fake news and false information and these easily shareable, easily digestible images. It happens all the time that they spread much, much, much faster than the truth that can catch up to it. And then even when the truth finally does catch up to it, it's already too late. People have made up their minds. They've moved on. They see the image and they go, "Oh, I've already seen that image. Let's move on." Even though the article related to the image is, "Hey, let's go ahead and debunk this particular image." So they said that the company is using the open claim review method, which they also use for YouTube, to provide fact-checking from a number of independent authoritative sources such as PolitiFact, Snopes, so on and so forth. There you go. The timing is appropriate. Obviously, as I said before, the U.S. presidential election is just a few months away, and there are concerns that both hostile countries and domestic politicians will want to use manipulated imagery to mislead voters. So, I like this one a lot because I think a lot of people already know about reverse image searching, where you can actually search for an image on Google Images and it will try to find the nearest, closest image that they can. And if you do that for a lot of these, and you can just kind of, especially if you can share it with the person, family member, colleague, someone close to you, and you can just, quickly reverse image search it and find accurate information, hey, maybe it'll turn them on to the fact that they are taking the bait. So there you go. So with that being said, we have a number of other articles I want to get to real quick. So that was Google. This next one comes from Krebs on security. Great publication, and it's all from this gentleman that does a lot of work in the cybersecurity field. Check this one out. BlueLeaks. BlueLeaks as in, well, a massive data trove of, let's see, I think this was of 220 different law enforcement agencies. So you're looking at 270 gigabytes, and a lot of these have to do with. So this happened. So the reveal happened last week, or at least it started surfacing last week, and now we're starting to get a bigger handle on what was exactly taken. They said that and made searchable online stems from a security breach at a Texas web design and hosting company that maintains a number of state law enforcement data sharing portals. And they said that in a post on Twitter, they said that the BlueLeaks archive indexes 10 years of data from over 200 police departments, fusion centers, and other law enforcement training and support resources. They said that they obtained internal June 20 analysis of it and confirmed the validity of the leaked data. Let's see. So they noted that the dates of the files in the leak actually span near 24 years, from August 1996 to June 19, 2020. So, yeah, this stuff is super recent, going all the way up to June 19th, just 2 days ago. Very, very, very recent. Let's see. So they say that analysis of the data contained in this leak suggests that a web services company was the source of the compromise, and they confirmed the compromise was likely the result of a threat actor who leveraged a compromised customer user account and the portal platform upload feature to introduce malicious content, allowing for the exfiltration of the customer data. So, sounds like they uploaded some malware, and then you had an ATP, an APT, advanced persistent threat, working in the background to offload as much data as possible, and looks like they got years worth of stuff. So let's see. With this volume of material, there are bound to be compromises of sensitive operations and maybe even human sources and undercover police. It may put lives at risk. Every organized crime operation in the country will likely have searched for their own names before law enforcement knows what's in the files, so the damage could be done quickly. If I recall, let's see, what was actually leaked? Let's see. I think that is what was here. Okay, the data dump contains emails and associated attachments. Our initial analysis revealed that some of these files contain highly sensitive information, such as ACH routing numbers, internal bank account numbers, and other financial data, as well as personally identifiable information, images of suspects listed in the request for information, and other law enforcement and government agency reports. A pretty wide, but overall, certain parties are going to like this a lot more than others. Yeah, I'm not sure what is going to come out from all of this. I'm sure that we're going to be talking about this with our regular correspondent here this Wednesday, and I look forward to seeing what he thinks about this. Scott Schober is very good on security, and yeah, this looks like one of those topics that I think I need Scott Schober's expertise to really break it down for me. So with that being said, less than 3 minutes left. Okay, how about this one? We'll end it on a high note for everyone out there. Don't worry. Nearly 20% of Earth's seafloor is now mapped. If you were wondering, I know that you were. Personally, I thought it already was. I have seen images of, kind of if you digitally took away the water, what the ocean floor would look like, but looks like we're not even close to it. In a decisive leap, researchers have now mapped more than 1/5 of the world's ocean floors. When an initiative to map the entire seafloor, the entire seafloor by 2030 took off in 2017. Just 6% have been mapped by modern standards. And the project, called Seabed 2030, is a collaboration between the Japanese Foundation and the Intergovernmental Organization of the General Bathymetric Chart of Ocean. Here you go. The endeavor will help scientists better understand how tsunamis form and how much we can expect sea levels to rise as a result of climate change. The complete map could also aid industries looking to exploit oil, gas, and minerals in the deep sea. And the data is important for telecom companies laying down undersea cables from coast to coast. And the map and the data collected so far are available to the public. And we'll be sure to include a link to that as well, which you can kind of see here on the video portion. It's pretty cool. They've mapped a considerable amount of the ocean floor, ridges, canyons, mountain ranges, taller than anything here on the surface. It's really incredible, but at the same time, very time consuming, because obviously you have to send a vessel out and map every nook and cranny of the world's oceans. It's pretty incredible. So everyone, the music playing in the background means that we're just about done. Thank you so much for tuning in here to Computer America. I'm sorry I have to end this so fast, but everyone have a great day. Thank you so much. ComputerAmerica.com. Check out show notes, podcasts, and more. Everyone, have a good day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.